Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 13th of December, year 2023. Welcome to everyone, and let me welcome our panel members. We have Kelly here, who is a Qigong teacher as well as decades of spiritual teaching. So welcome, Kelly. And I know everybody is very familiar with Kelly. And then we also have Patricia here, who is part of our core group of meditators. Good evening, Patricia. Actually, Kelly, y'all have your workshop this Sunday, right? Can you do a plug-in for that? And I'll tag everyone, then I'll bring up the question. Thank you.
Yeah, we have our winter solstice gathering this weekend. We're going to be doing an activation, and there's April, who's also on the panel, and Kelly, who's also on the panel. He's supposed to be joining us tonight, so hopefully he'll show up soon. And we're going to have a meditation and an activation, and we usually talk about some topics. People sometimes bring things up, but we have some ideas already about how we can help people change some of their mindsets or inner stories that they have to plant the seeds for the next few months when you can bring them to fruition. That's on Sunday, so you can join us from anywhere in the world. If anyone has questions.
Thank you so much, Kelly. So the question that I'm going to read is, this person says, one of my current struggles is finding peace between feeling the deep sadness of the world's atrocities and also feeling gratitude and love for my own life. Sometimes I feel that when I focus on gratitude and love, that I'm choosing to be oblivious and blinded to the horrors other humans are undergoing. Other times I feel that when I focus on the injustices, that it lowers my vibration, affecting my mood and in my everyday activities. How can I find inner stability and peace between my sadness and gratitude? And this has come up quite a bit because two Facebook lives, um, like past Facebook lives, I think Summer talked about the Ukraine war and the war that is going on between Israel and between and the Gaza Strip. So everybody is like kind of focused. I know Francesca brought that up too in one of the Facebook posts about the atrocities that are going on in the world. So if you want to respond to that, and I'll try and type this after I tag everyone. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, did you want me to go first or someone else?
Yes,
Oh,
please. You can
okay.
go first. Unless you want me to read it for Kelly, and Kelly can go first.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll have a lot to say. You can read it again.
You want me to read it again? Welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining. So this is like a recurring topic that has come across. People have been talking about like the world affairs, right? So the question is, one of my current struggles is finding peace between feeling the deep sadness of the world's atrocities and also feeling gratitude and love for my own life. Sometimes I feel that when I focus on gratitude and love, that I'm choosing to be oblivious and blinded to the horrors other humans are undergoing. Other times I feel that when I focus on the injustices, that it lowers my vibration, affecting my mood and in my everyday activities. How can I find inner stability and peace between my sadness and gratitude?
Okay. First of all, anything outside of us has to be filtered. There's nothing wrong with focusing on ourselves. The main program of shadow and ego is to keep us from focusing on ourselves. And quite often, the powers that be use other people's pain and suffering to do this. There is enough money in the world to feed everybody, clothe everybody, house everybody, educate everybody for free. The system that operates now is run by a bunch of psychopaths. This should be pretty clear to people by now, especially with what is going on in the Middle East. The important thing, while we can have sympathy and compassion and love for people, it is important to understand that everything in mainstream news and media is designed to trigger us and to keep us trapped in negative thoughts, in judgment, in fear, in anger. Now, that's not to say that, judgment and, fear and anger, or anger especially, is not righteous. Anger can be very righteous. And the mistreatment, everyone should be angry at the mistreatment of any human. Period. There's no question in my mind. Especially when it comes to innocence, especially when it comes to non-combatants. There are rules in the world. There are, the Geneva Conventions and, gosh, the Nuremberg Code that people are not taught about in school. So they get into a space of triggerness and they don't understand the actual rules and international law governing conflicts, governing humanitarian aid and stuff like that. And obviously there are people who are not adhering to the Geneva Conventions and or even basic humaneness. Anytime women and children are the victims or the inadvertent casualties of a conflict, anytime this happens, it's a sad thing. Absolutely. The important thing is to understand that their pain is not your pain. Someone else's pain is never your pain. Someone else's journey is never your journey. So becoming bogged down in sorrow or grief is not what this should be about. People should be recognizing their sorrow and their grief and their angers as indication as to things being wrong. And the irony is that the conflict in the Middle East happened and everyone's forgotten about the Ukraine. Funny how that works. Even though Zelensky is still making his rounds and asking for billions and billions of dollars when he owns 2 mega yachts, each worth $75 million. So you got to ask, where do we draw the line at emotional involvement? Where do we draw the line at ego involvement? How do we understand when we are ego involved or shadow involved or emotionally involved? Oftentimes what will happen when we are not aware of ourselves is that we will use other people's pain to hide from our own. So this is something that's super, super important to be aware of. The most common response in terms of I can't separate myself from other people's pain or what's going on over there is because that person is hiding from being emotionally responsible or hiding from their own pain. So what we do is you transfer outside of ourselves because we don't want to look inside. So whoever this is, whoever is having the struggle, is not looking at their own issues, is not looking at their own pain and their own choices that they are making that are causing them pain. And, this is a very normal human thing to do. It is not easy to go inside and look at our issues, especially if we have been avoiding them for a long time. I'm the kind of person when I find something that I've been hiding from, I will burn everything down to be able to get to a place where I can dig it up and get rid of it and get it out of my life. And that's what happened with my marriage. Once I had figured out what was going on, there was nothing stopping me. We have to have this mentality when we are actually approaching our spaces of emotional responsibility. Emotional responsibility has to be the number one thing. It's the only way that you can be present. It's the only way that you can evolve. emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. You cannot have any type of spiritual evolution if you are not being mentally and emotionally responsible. This is the Buddhist Eightfold Path. You have to have right thought so that you have right speech, right action, right everything. And in order to do that, you have to be incredibly disciplined with yourself, especially not getting caught in other people's pain. We also like to use other people's pain and suffering and talk about it to show that we're a good person. And this is very commonplace in today's society. We do not understand psychological warfare as the general public doesn't. Being trained in public relations and marketing, which is essentially psychological warfare, and being raised in a political family, I've got a very unique insider's perspective on this. You also have to wonder, because we are seeing so much pain and suffering on the news, what we are being distracted from. Because that is what news is for, plain and simple. Is to keep us hopping, is to keep us unstable, and is to keep us distracted from the powers that be, who are not very responsible, who are not very ethical or principled, and the very unethical and often quite horrible and heinous things that they do in the guise of bombing for freedom. So what are we going to do? Let's see. Other times I feel that when I focus on the injustices, it lowers my vibration, affecting my mood and my everyday activities. No, these kinds of things don't lower your vibration. Your choice to choose sadness over neutrality, a person's choice to choose sorrow and grief over someone else's pain versus being in neutral observation, being present with themselves, is what will do the harm. What's going on in the external world cannot affect your vibration unless you let it. And when we focus and we get wrapped up and hijacked by our ego and our shadow into these spaces of grief and sorrow that are not ours, that are fabricated by our ego and shadow to make us feel complicit, or I could do more, or I'm not a good person because I'm not doing enough. This comes down to self-worth. I am personally incredibly upset over a lot of things that are going on in the world, but I do not let it affect my mood. I do not let it affect the way I interact with people. I do not let my inner dialogue waver from my discipline or my self-love. And this isn't anything fancy. It's just discipline. It's just understanding that you can feel more than one thing at once. And oftentimes we have a really hard time understanding this until we begin to learn how to be present with ourselves and discipline our thoughts and our emotions. Because you can have a dozen different emotions and a dozen different thoughts happen in the space of 1 second. And this is how we are multidimensional as humans. But to get to become completely unstable because of other people's pain means that you're not actually doing work. You're not actually disciplining yourself. You're not actually practicing. People can read Eckhart Tolle's work, but until they actually start practicing and applying and stopping their minds from running away with themselves. And this is what this really boils down to, is that until we understand discipline and give it to ourselves, we will often let our ego and shadow run away with us and get us feeling overwhelmed because we think it's normal. That kind of normalness is a story that you're born into, and everyone believes it's normal until they started disciplining themselves and experiencing otherwise. And again, this is about understanding that someone's path or someone's pain halfway around the world is not your pain. It's not your path. You can have compassion, you can have love for them, and you can have sympathy, and you can be upset about what's going on. But their path is not your path. So why are you trying to walk their path for them? You can't do that. So people need to focus on themselves and understand that that pain is outside of them and it's not who they are because it's outside of them. When we make other people's pain our pain, we usually do it again to hide and to cover up our own emotional states that we haven't dealt with. And people should stop making this about vibration, because until you understand discipline and being with oneself and being comfortable being uncomfortable, you'll never change your vibration. You can meditate and you can play at spiritual evolution or being spiritual by reading books and using the words to sound good. But until you actually have discipline with your thoughts and you can actually push away the exterior stimulus, the stimulation of fear and grief and external events, you can't take it personally. You can't. Other people's pain you can't take personally. And this is one of the biggest traps in the spiritual community, is taking on other people's pain. And it takes discipline. It takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight. It can't happen overnight. Being comfortable with pain, because we are in a world that is, the powers that be. We have, majority of them are psychopaths running, like children with a loaded gun, all giggly and gleeful that they have power, right? It's the wrong kind of power. We all know this. Oftentimes we don't want to face it. We don't want to even acknowledge the fact that power is in the wrong hands, and we want to believe our leaders, and we want to believe that our leaders will do the right thing. They never will. They haven't. I mean, even World War II was a massive, misdirection in terms of where the power was actually going, which signified a shift from military intervention into economic and psychological warfare in a big, big way. And it's really important to understand the components of psychological warfare. And here's a term that got banned all over the place the last few years: mass formation psychosis. Mass formation psychosis. Look it up. This is how psychological warfare works. You repeat something long enough, you put it in people's face, you wear them down to the point where they're so tired of hearing about it, they're so tired of seeing the pain and suffering, they will do anything to get it out of their vision or out of their minds. And this is how other people's pain and suffering is used as psychological warfare, as rationale and validation for doing even worse things. Again, other people's pain is not ours. So if someone is getting overwhelmed by everything that's going on in the Middle East, take a step back. Maybe not watch the news. Maybe don't listen to people who are talking about it all the time. Look at who's around you. Look at who's talking about it. Yeah, it's on the news. But again, mainstream news is part of the machine designed to wear us down and designed to convince us and designed to socially engineer the fabric of society to suit certain people's agendas. I could keep going. This is one of my favorite topics, so I'll just, I'll say that's my 2.5 cents, and I'll let other people speak.
You can speak some more, Kelly, because there are not very many people on the panel today.
Okay.
You can take the floor a little bit more. Did you want to elaborate on, so I know this pointer that you are offering, Kelly, I've heard it as well, is who benefits from that war?
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
We have to question who benefits instead of getting pulled into the atrocities of what's going on in Israel or in the Gaza Strip.
Well, let's talk about a little bit of real history here.
Sure, thank
People
you.
talk as if, I don't, I have great admiration for Muslim culture. I have great admiration for the resiliency, the community centeredness of Muslim and Arab culture, especially. Um, but Palestine was created by the Romans to mock the Jews, to mock the kingdom of Judea. When the Romans took over, they realized that they had to do psychological warfare against the Jews to dissuade them and to be able to outright mock them legally in legal court so that no landowners could claim ownership, so that they could steal all the land from the Jews, from the current occupants, Jews and Arabs together. Up until the Romans, the Jews and Arabs lived in what is now Jerusalem and Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, that whole area. Up until the Romans, there wasn't this type of animosity between these two specific cultural groups. And the Romans created Palestine, the province of Palestine, to mock the Jews and to rewrite history the way they did everywhere they went, in order to subvert local custom and to subvert local law and to implement their own courts and their own giving their own merchants the upper hand legally against everybody. The Roman Empire collapses. I mean, you have, all of the Crusades and you have all this history. And it was the province of Palestine up until 1948 and the creation of Israel. And the thing is that Jews and Arabs have lived in that area for thousands and thousands of years. And it's the Balfour Declaration, created by the Rothschilds. Look up the Balfour Declaration, created by the Rothschilds. Those lovely, wonderful people who, own a lot of money, own a lot of people, and who were shaping the world in their image because they wanted to create instability in the region, because one of the biggest dangers to the Rothschilds' plan to extract resources and oil from the region would have been a unified Jewish and Arab front. And if you had a unified group in that area, I mean, look up, there used to be a documentary on Netflix called The Secret of the Seven Sisters. Absolutely excellent documentary on how the Rothschilds convinced the British Foreign Affairs Minister to create this protectorate, how they convinced the British Foreign Minister to allow the oil companies to go into what is now modern day Iraq and Iran and to set up infrastructure for oil drilling and oil extraction. And the way they did this is by basically loaning these countries stupid amounts of money and telling them that they had to pay it back within a certain amount of time. And if they didn't, they owned the infrastructure, they owned the resources, they owned everything. So this is what the Rothschilds do, and this is, honestly been repeated over and over. This is what China does. China did this with the country called Qatar, which is hugely, hugely oil rich, like crazy oil rich. Just as oil, it's a tiny country, little speck of a country like the size of Kuwait, incredibly rich in oil. Wars are all about resources. It's, it's other than maybe the war for, some of the revolutionary wars in Europe and in Africa, they're anyhow, okay, we don't need to open up that whole history index, but oh, hold on a sec. Oh, my mom's calling. G'day. Hold on a second. Okay. So understanding the history of Palestine and Israel is really, really important. You even have there's an Egyptian stele from the year 1208 BC, made by the Pharaoh Mene many fat. It was like men are fat. And also there's like two other Egyptian pharaohs that erected steles to commemorate their victory over the nomadic Semitic people, the Yasu, which were the pre-Israelites. So in this area, you had Semitic peoples for thousands of years, and they've been there for thousands of years, right alongside the Arabs. And honestly, it wasn't until World War II that things really got bad, because you had thousands and thousands of Nazis escape Germany thanks to the Red Cross and the Catholic Church, who escaped to the Middle East, who escaped to Syria, who escaped to Turkey, but especially Egypt and Cairo. There was at least 2,500 reported going directly from a church in Italy to Cairo directly. And they all converted to Islam. They all took on Muslim names to hide in plain sight. And one of these individuals, who first escaped to Argentina and then got asked to come back and train people, was Hitler's favorite commando named Otto Skorzeny. Now, you have to understand that in the Middle East, the Arabs were very supportive of the Germans, the way they had been in World War I. They were still allies after World War I. They still did a lot of trade. And during World War II, they supported the Nazis unequivocally. It was Mehmet III, I think it was, or the Mufti. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But you had a lot of Nazis escape to the Middle East after World War II, like tens of thousands of them. And Otto Skorzeny was Hitler's specialist in guerrilla warfare and what we now call asymmetrical warfare or guerrilla warfare. There are pictures of Otto Skorzeny in full Nazi uniform with other SS Waffen officers inspecting the very first Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO cells. They trained the very first terrorist cells, or what we now refer to as terrorist cells, in the Middle East. Because their allies, the Arabs, wanted their military expertise. You had battle-hardened Prussians who were trained in military tactics. The Prussians, the field marshals, were incredible military resources for the fledgling countries that were exerting their independence from colonial rule from the British and the French in Africa. Egypt is one of these. There's a whole series on Egypt liberating the Suez Canal from the British. And of course, the British went to war with them after World War II. And Otto Skorzeny ended up, I'm going to have to probably answer that. Otto Skorzeny ended up the defense minister of Egypt in 1972 and trained an awful lot of people. There are pictures of whole brigades holding Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, and doing the SS salute. There are pictures if you look for them. So there's a huge Nazi influence in the Middle East that is a throwback to World War II. And because the Arab leaders during World War II supported the Nazis in Africa and in the Middle East, a great many of the battle-hardened, I hate to say it, but Jew-hating Nazis, anti-Semitic Nazis, ended up in the Middle East and have contributed to the culture in the Middle East. We're basically watching World War II still happening because of the influences of the Nazis in the Middle East and in Egypt. With Otto Skorzeny was defense minister in Egypt for about 12 years, and he got an awful lot of people trained. And, it's one of the reasons why Egypt and Turkey and Syria went to war with Israel. I think it was a 7-day war to try and take out Israel, is because it was of the influence of the Nazi officers in the upper echelons of the military in those countries, who got hired because they had all this military expertise, and those countries wanted to train their armies and have very, expertly trained armies. It's all about resources and resource allocation. And unfortunately, right now you have the people who are the remnants of the local Arabs living in and around Israel, in Gaza and the West Bank, who are suffering at the hands of this history. So this isn't just about, what's going on right now. This is something that has been going on for like literally almost 100 years. And if you go back to the Roman times, then it's literally about almost 2,000 years. So there's a lot of history to unpack, and there's a lot of history to look at. And unfortunately, there are a lot of civilians and a lot of innocent people getting caught in the middle. But these people, again, if you look at it at a soul level, these people are there to, yes, experience this horrendous event and experience, and to also hold that space and to also defy that space. Because at a soul level, these people will be there to experience it so that they understand it and so that they don't recreate it the next time around. Okay, I think I have to go figure out what my mom was calling about.
Sure.
Yeah, my dad
We
got some
talked to
doctor appointment.
Kelly. We talked to
Yeah,
Kelly. Thank you.
I'll be back.
Incredibly amazing. Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
Wow. I don't even know where to start. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Kelly's really up on the history, but the history behind the history, like, because there's so much of history that's been rewritten to teach people. And a lot of the things that he said, there's actually a lot of people on social media right now who are talking about a lot of the same things. So if you're not hearing about that part of it, maybe like go look, like for anybody that's interested, like go look and just try to hear with an open mind and heart, like what other people are saying about the history of all these regions. And like we were saying at the beginning, like who's actually benefiting from these wars, because it isn't the innocent people, and it's always the innocent people that get caught up in all of these things. Now that I'm older and I have a few more years of life experience behind me, um the events of 9/11, for example, they happened right like 2 weeks before my son was born, my second child. And as a mother, I thought, "Oh, this is horrible. What kind of a world am I bringing my child into?" That's where my mind was at. But then I had to just concentrate. I thought, well, what I can do in my corner of the world where I'm living is focus on raising my children with as much love and compassion and everything that I have. I can make my corner of the world a better place. And if everybody, like, if you think about that for a second, ponder that we, if everybody in the world did that, if everyone in the world said, I'm going to make my corner of the world better, think about how that would spread. That if everybody made their corner better, that would spread everywhere. So I do feel sometimes like I do have to turn off the news. I'm not oblivious to what's going on. I do feel that it's horrific. The wisdom that I've gained with having a little more life experience from, being in my 20s when my son was born to now that he's an adult is that I understand souls better. I understand soul contracts better. And while it's terribly sad that people are losing their life, I mean, I think everyone could say that none of us want to die. None of us want to do that. But if you try to observe it from a soul level, that these people have chosen to be born in that region, to actually expose what's happening there, to help humanity see what's going on, I do feel that helps. I know that that helps me. And that's not to whitewash it and to say that it's not horrible, but it's also to understand on a planetary and an energetic level that there are things happening that we don't see with our 3D vision, with our 3D eyes. And so that's, for me, that's how, what I do is when these horrific things are happening is I will send love and gratitude and compassion to those souls that are being, hurt, injured, having to leave their homes, doing that, or being killed, that I will send them as much love and compassion that I have, and to that region, so that everyone could see what's actually going on, rather than what's we're told in the news, or what we might see on a 30-second TikTok video or something. So it can be hard, especially if you're a deep feeler. But I do agree with what Kelly was saying, is that their pain is not mine. It doesn't make me a better person to take it on and to carry it, because then I'm burdening myself. I'm weighing myself down with something that isn't mine. I didn't choose to be in that region this time. I chose to be here. So my purpose, or my mission in life, whatever that may be, is to be here and to be spreading a message that is different, and to help those other people maybe spread their message in a different way, or to do something else. And it doesn't mean you can't volunteer for things, sending goods, or what's the word I'm looking for, donate money to causes and things like that, if that's something that calls to you. I feel that to take on other people's pain, like that isn't my job. I don't think it's anybody else's job to do that. But I think it's our job to educate ourselves, definitely, to educate ourselves on how, what we could do, on educating ourselves in what beyond the history that we see in a newspaper or a book, because there's so many other things that we could learn how to do. And so I always look at myself like, well, what can I keep learning? What can I keep learning from, a situation that I'm in, or when I observe a situation that other people are in? What else is it that I need to learn? Because this is here for me to learn something too. So what can we learn from that, rather than get caught up in it? Because when we get caught up in something that's outside of ourselves, then we take the focus off of ourselves. And honestly, it's a very hard concept, I think, for people to get, because we always think about being in service, and that we have to be in service to other people. One of the best ways that you can be of service to humanity is by healing yourself. You heal yourself, you raise your vibration. Not only do you raise your vibration, but you then raise the vibration of the planet. So what you do matters. How you feel matters. Your feelings are not less important because of what's happening somewhere else in the world. You can put things in perspective and be grateful that you're not in a war-torn country. You can have gratitude for the life choices that you've made that have brought you to this place in your life, right? Like, those are things that you can do. So I don't know. I could add more things, but
Perfectly said. Incredible, Kelly. That's perfectly said. As far as the soul contract, I'm eternally grateful to both of you, because you all touched on exactly the points that needed to be touched on, which is, one, don't take on the pain, because as Eckhart says, where is your present moment? Your present moment is not, you're not in Gaza, or you're not in Ukraine. Then you are not experiencing the power of this present moment. Because in this present moment, I'm talking to all of you. Like, if my mind is going to what is going on in Ukraine, or what is going on with all the human trafficking that's going on, all the millions of children that are affected by human trafficking, I am not in the power of the present moment. People need to know that that is all that his teachings are about. No matter what spiritual if Kelly's talking about Buddhist teaching and the Eightfold Path, anybody that is talking about what is the crux of the spiritual teaching, it is to have or embody presence, is to be fully present in this moment. And that means, where are we in this moment? If our mind is continuously going through this movie making, right? Oh, this is happening in Ukraine, that is happening in so and so. The other part to it is like you'll talk about the soul contracts. I've been listening to, since April mentioned Dolores Cannon, I've been listening to a lot of Dolores Cannon's work, which is her lectures and her books. And it is incredibly amazing how this planet was created. The like she talks about Lemuria, she talks about she takes people, if anybody's trying to figure out what work she does, she's a hypnotist, but she heals people by taking them into their past life. And if you look at her lectures, or if you look at her books where she's talking about people that are going in their past life, there are healers that go into Lemuria, like they've been a priestess in Lemuria, or they've been a healer in the time of Atlantis. So just imagine, this earth was protected by all these people. And that's what she says, like when the first atomic bomb, when the atomic bomb went off in Japan, immediately souls, like other entities came in, other souls, she calls it the first wave, like they were never had a past life, they were like people that took birth here to bring peace to earth. And that gave me such a you know, that earth is protected, like we are very protected by all the, and we are only being drawn into this 3D world of, oh, this war is going on, this human trafficking is going on, this rape is going on, or whatever is going on, but we are not realizing in the multi-dimensionality of it, there are entities that are watching us. There are other extraterrestrial entities that are watching Earth. So if you all want to talk about that, actually, let me go to Patricia for 10 minutes because it's getting late for her. Then I'll come back to that question. Both of you can talk about that. But I'm really grateful for the pointers that you're bringing up. Go ahead, Patricia, if you want to talk about the subject, or if you want to listen to what Kelly and Kelly have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fascinating. I can listen and listen because it sounds true. I know, silly me, I just have a practical question because I know it's sometimes in the moment very hard for me to distinguish between, like, if my present moment, if I'm present, why do I even have I know it's shadow and ego, but what will give me that power, the discipline to say no to it if it's there and it's so deeply programmed in me? And I know I've been reading about this, that it helps when you are in presence of more spiritual people or more enlightened people, so their presence will bring your presence higher. But if you surround yourself with the news or people that complain, it will pull you down. So it's actually making the choice of surrounding yourself with people that can help you grow versus those that will bring you down. So just practical, that how do I choose? I mean, I know I have to be present to choose, but how do I just meditation? I just don't know. Sometimes knowing and actually being that, I'm not sure if I have any power over this or it just happens. Not sure about that. So some practical, maybe, like when Kelly was talking about, it requires discipline to just don't accept certain thoughts. How do I not accept that catch that moment before they take over? And I'm just starting to feel it in my body, then just sit with it. And the reason why I sometimes feel like I avoid present moment is because I don't want to feel certain feelings. So, and with.
That's why people choose not to be present.
Right.
That's very normal. Are you, is there any more to the question?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Is there any more to the question? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Patricia.
No, I'm just producing more words to, I think, hear myself, which really is the question. It's, you know, that responsibility, and even Dr. Joe Dispenza, change your life, change the world, change yourself, change the world. So that responsibility that Kelly was talking about, that what we can do. But sometimes in the present moment, you are called to do something for others, no? Or it's always about you.
It's always about you, even when you're doing stuff for other people.
Hmm?
It's always about you, even when you are doing stuff for other people. Your focus should always be inside. Wiggle your toes. Question: how do you choose what to eat for breakfast?
I don't. It kind of comes to me. I'm silly, but I just
That's it. And that's perfectly, because you don't probably eat the same thing every day, right? Or do you eat the same thing every day? And that's
She
okay
probably
too.
does. She probably does because she follows the medical medium protocol. So she must be doing the heavy metal detox smoothie.
but it wasn't like that always. Yes, right now I just do my 3 things in the morning, which is lemon water, celery juice, and heavy metal detox smoothie. That's my 3 things. So it's just at this point going on.
So you have
So
a habit.
Yeah.
You've created a habit.
Yes.
Same thing with your mind. When you are having trouble with being overwhelmed or choosing, especially something that you were saying at the beginning of the question, you literally talk to yourselves like, I am not this pain. I am not this thought. I am not this thought, until the thought goes away. You have to literally be that deliberate. I am not this fear.
The
I
vigilance.
accept that this fear is present, but I am not this fear. You need to accept both places. One of the things that I discovered in my journey is realizing that my mind fought to have it either or, to have one or the other, to have
Right.
it black and white. It's never black and white, especially when you're processing out old thought forms. Your ego and your shadow will kick and scream and cause you doubt, cause you confusion, and try and get you to be afraid. And that's okay. That's normal. That's what ego and shadow do. You know this. People who have practiced their practice and developed discipline know this. Anyone who has spent any time doing any kind of exercise or spending hours writing essays, going to school, the way that we make decisions, it's about normal life, is exactly the way you make decisions about your thoughts. You can choose which thoughts to have. And you can choose to push your thoughts away. You can choose to push the negative thoughts away. You can accept them. You have to accept them, though. You have to acknowledge them, recognize that there's a pattern, that there's a story, but also say and talk to yourself that you are not that pattern anymore. You're not those thoughts anymore. You literally have to be that deliberate, because being that deliberate builds up momentum, builds up a counterbalance to the weight of the negative talk, the negative thoughts. Yes, being around people helps. Having some selenite. The wonderful thing about selenite is that it actually gives off a neutral energy field.
What is that? A crystal?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Oh,
he
yeah.
has a bigger one.
Actually, I actually do have a bigger one at home.
Have a tower.
This one's a little bit more easy to transport. Selenite, Selenite. It's compressed salt. It's a form of gypsum. And salt energetically has a purifying effect. And because these molecules are compressed, it's like quartz. When you compress quartz, it gives off an electromagnetic field. That's how transistors work. That's how your phone works. That's how watches work. So selenite is a completely neutral energy field that it gives off. I forget what kind of radio spectrum analysis demonstrates this, but something like this, it'll actually probably have a range out to here. And it actually is like, this is actually cold to the touch. It's actually really, really nice. And I use it all the time. Like if I have a stiff muscles or something like that, I'll place this on. Kelly actually got me some early Christmas present,
Oh,
right?
Oh.
Just in my pocket. One on each,
what's that?
one on each side. This is selenite too. This is
Oh,
polished selenite.
Put it on your eyes if you have a headache. Yeah.
Yep.
and you
These
can just
these
stick.
feel great if you can just go like, oh yeah, right. This is awesome. Feels amazing. I try and do that every night before I go to bed because it helps, because the electromagnetic field, the neutral field, the balanced electronic field that they give off, because they're compressed crystal, right? Compressed salt crystal gives off a neutral and a purifying. Because it's salt, it's purifying.
Mm.
So
That's why it sometimes helps when you take a bath with salt.
yes, exactly. Exactly. It's a great way to purify your energy field. Oh, we
This
have
is-
a store right
Mm.
around the corner from our house in the city.
Yeah.
We have a
So
couple, yeah, we have a couple of stores here in the city, but you probably would have one too. Like if you Google crystal shops or any kind of metaphysical shop, somewhere
So
where you
you can find them on Amazon.
you
oh yeah,
probably could. Oh
absolutely.
yeah, you could go on Amazon. Have it delivered tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
know, I want it right now. I want to go. I thought that maybe you guys dug it out or somewhere, because I did.
No.
Oh, I would love to be able to go. I would like buy a 3-ton truck and haul away a hill of this stuff if I could.
Make a house
By
out of
hand.
it. Build a house out of it. Right?
Yeah. Yep. That and labradorite paving stones everywhere.
I
Absolutely.
wonder what the difference is between this and actual salt, like stone salt, because in Poland there are a lot of old mines when they used to excavate, and I was visiting one and I like brought one of them, but I use it, it's pretty, it sits there, but I didn't think that it has any power.
Um, Salt is a purifying agent, and there's a reason why the church has used it for thousands of years. Why it's used as a purifying agent and a protector against evil spirits and dark energies is because salt has a neutralizing effect on the pH balance, on the acidic content of our stomach, and on our energy fields because of how it absorbs dense, toxic energy, literally.
I too like sea salt or Himalayan salt is better for you than table salt because of how it's processed and also the mineral content.
Yep.
So if like we cook with Himalayan salt all the time.
Yeah, me too.
I put it in everything. And there's medical things that are like, oh, too much salt is, bad for you. It's actually there's more literature coming out that salt isn't really a problem. It's not the problem that everyone thinks it is. Most people probably don't get enough.
Yep.
But we're told all these things, right? But I mean, okay, that's another topic for another day, but
But I love this whole thing about crystal. Yeah, this is such a useful, because sometimes, I try to overthink it, and I really would need just have a little stick with me to just, take it energetically away without me trying
Yeah.
to overdo it,
Well,
because
and yeah, this.
another
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say another thing that you can do, as I was watching today, and this works, it helps calm your vagus nerve, is humming or toning. So that's another thing. If you can, if you're at home, I mean, it's hard to do at the office. I mean, unless you take yourself to the bathroom or lock yourself in a cubicle, but like, or even just like really
Really
low,
low key.
like,
Yeah.
because I mean, think about why we sing to babies. Why do babies love it when we sing? Because it's very soothing. It's the tone. They hear their mother's vibration. They feel their mother's like, vocal tone.
Is it
We
almost like we do we just say right?
Mhm. But
Right?
you can do other sounds too, like that can be very good for the upper chakras. You can do e it feels different in your body when you do different
I
tones.
heard that the word amen, like amen, you know what they do, that's also kind of the energetically.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm,
Yeah, there's a reason why it used to be sung in mass all the time.
mhm.
Gregorian chants are encompass the entire solfeggio sequence of tones. There's a reason why they were stopped in the churches, because they're actually very healing in the cathedrals and the churches with sepulchres, where you could actually, where the basilicas, especially where you had the big huge alcoves where the sound would echo and
Yes,
spiral.
Europe, yeah, in Poland, yes.
Um,
Can I add something?
oh, absolutely.
I was going to say too, to go back to all the things we were talking about, is that we're born into a world that wants us to continually look outside of ourselves from the time we're a small child.
Yep.
That we're always looking outside. And if you don't have people that teach you how to like look inside or to feel because they don't know how, then we're always looking outside for validation. And so, that's why the news is effective, why marketing is effective. I rarely ever buy anything because I see a commercial. Commercials very rarely ever make me go, "Oh, I want that." Because I know the tactic that doesn't really work on me, right? So it's like when I buy products, it's because I like it, or I want to experiment with like more natural things, or a lot of the things I buy, you're asking about a company um to buy the crystals from, but there's a lot of things that I buy that are locally made, things that I use that, on my skin or whatever, because I know what people are putting into it. I know, not everybody wants to do that, or they, can do it. But we're often just taught that it's like we need to look outside
Yep.
of ourselves, and we're not taught how to go inside. And it is practice. Like when you make a habit and you formed a habit, or you've learned a skill like handwriting, tying your shoes, stopping your mind is the same thing. It's just that you have to go, wow, okay, wait, this story is resurrecting itself again. Why?
Yep.
Like, especially if it's something that you've dealt with a few times, like there can be layers to things. But I always think if something is coming up again for me, then there's something that's my ego and shadow going, oh, you should be bothered by this because you haven't dealt with it. And that's usually a lie.
Yep.
Because there's something else that I need to look at. There's something else underneath that I have to see. And sometimes it's because, oh, I've moved into a new place in my life, but my nervous system, because it is physical, my ego, my shadow, it doesn't want me to see that. It doesn't want me to see that things are different. It wants to convince me that they're still the same. Right. And that's kind of like the same thing that's on a global scale that's happening with all of the things going on, is that the outside world's trying to convince us that nothing's going to get better.
Yep.
And that's a lie.
That's a lie. Because to go back to what Poonam was saying, we are protected.
Yeah.
There was a contract with the Darklings that came here, and their contract is up, and they're pushing really hard, and things are falling apart and being exposed, and it's the natural order of things. As much as it is horrendous an experience for some people in certain parts of the world, caught in contested areas where there's a lot of history that hasn't been unpacked, that's never been looked at. It's I am profoundly grateful to be an observer. I am profoundly grateful to not be caught in the middle. And I will, yeah, like what Kelly was saying earlier about, how you can do other things. And you can support local charities, you can volunteer, you can do things to build that counterbalance, just like what we do with our minds, where we work at our discipline. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps here. Where you work at your discipline and involving yourself with intention. This is why being present with self is so important, because when you involve yourself in a community with intention, you amplify the love and the joy and the compassion. When you have multiple people who are on the same wavelength, operating with that same conscious participation of intention, you can do amazing things. And those ripple effects can, again, it's the butterfly effect, where you can ripple your intention all the way around the world. One person is actually that powerful. This is what Buddha and Jesus and Muhammad and all the other prophets and ascended masters and teachers have been trying to tell us forever and ever and ever, because it's true. The power of one human heart is truly unimaginable. Given every cell in our body has more power in it in our mitochondria than 10,000 times the surface of the sun's, the energy of the surface of the sun. And just think about that. You have 3 trillion cells in your body. That's 3 trillion suns. So if we actually went inside and dissolved all of our illusion, dissolved all of our barriers to our divine aspects, we would be literally more powerful than 3 trillion suns.
Almost unfathomable, right? From the brain to, just when you think of sun giving all that energy to earth, and I'm just here, little human being struggling to make my ends meet.
But you're not a little human being. You're not a little human being, Patricia. Anyone who is on this planet is an advanced soul, is here to learn transmutation. Learning transmutation of the darkness ripples outward exponentially. When you transmute a pattern, a barrier to your heart, to being present with yourself, when you change that, you literally change the world, because that ripples outward. And nothing can stop that. Nothing can stop that energy of love for yourself.
Never
This,
think you're insignificant.
yeah, you're not insignificant, Patricia, not at all.
Nobody here on the planet right now is insignificant.
Nobody. Even the people perpetrating what we consider horrendous, horrible acts of violence. Because they are showing us what darkness is light so that we can see it. And so that we can transmute it ourselves, within ourselves. So that we can feel that reflection within ourselves, find those spaces that we didn't want to look at before, and choose. And this is the whole point of this being a free will zone, is that we have this grand capacity to choose and to transmute, which makes every single person, every single being on this planet incredibly important to not just the planet, but the entire universe. Anytime you heal, even the smallest little thought, the smallest little pattern,
You made a difference.
that's right. That's right. You make a huge difference for the grander picture.
But if you keep,
every
but
little
if,
seed of truth and conviction.
but if you keep feeling the pain, then you're not healing. And so you're contributing, your energy, lowered energy is contributing to the pain of the world.
Yes, that's very true. If you stay stuck and you wallow, although it's not to be confused with cycling back through and healing a deeper level of a pattern, because there are other aspects. When we begin to dig through stuff, we begin to see the patterns, when we begin to see the connections, when we begin to see how everything's connected. And the really cool thing is that it gets easier. It normalizes, just like breathing, just like riding a bike. It normalizes. And yeah, I mean, if you get stuck in negative patterns, if you get stuck in negative thought, sometimes that's the lesson. Sometimes we have to get stuck and then step out of it, because sometimes we can't see until we get stuck. And then when we step out of it, we're like, oh, like the clarity, the contrast gives us clarity. And it is really important to understand those differences. And without getting stuck every once in a while, we can't understand those differences. And we can't understand our own strength too. As one of the things that when I went through my divorce and stepped away from the old space of my concept of relationship and love and family and all that with my ex-wife, did I begin to understand how strong I was and how much I actually understood about myself. And that was both bittersweet, but also incredibly um, mind-numbingly joyful. You know,
I would love to feel that, yes.
well,
That's good.
again, it's that juxtaposition of feeling those two things at once, right? Sometimes we have to feel those darker spaces and we have to get stuck in them, or we have to be angry and we have to be in a grumpy mood all day or all week or all month, or even go through depression. Because sometimes, we've been stuck somewhere so long that we need to feel that depression. We need to be really, really clear about what all of those negative emotions, and we have to dig through. We have to go into the darkness to find the truth of who we are. Because without finding that strength, and this is the thing, like if someone is here and they're questioning, and they have depression, they have anxiety, they are actually digging up, or they're digging up their patterns. And this will trigger depression, and this will trigger anxiety because those are the languages of shadow and ego.
I think Dr. Joe Dispenza, the way he explains it is the body is the one that is the subconscious mind. So that's where it is stored. All the anxiety, everything is stored in the body. So your body is taking you back in the past. And then you have to use your mind, the clarity of presence, awareness, and say, no, body, you're not going to take me back to that anxiety. You're not.
Yes.
That's what we were talking about right before the Facebook Live, is if you're getting repeatedly a negative thought about something, go, okay, let me think about a medical meeting. That's what I do. I'll go, if something about work is churning in my head, right? Something that I need to do the next day, but I'm not in the next day, I'm actually done with my work day. Then I'll replace it with, oh, what's the next medical medium recipe that I want to try? So I divert my mind to something that's very neutral.
Yep.
Right? So you're replacing that thought with something different. This is something that even Abraham Hicks teaches, is step down from your emotion. Like if you're angry, step down to maybe think about something that frustrates you, not anger, but step down. And you cannot go from anger to unconditional love. It doesn't happen immediately. You have to step down in your emotions.
Yeah, it takes practice to make that switch. One of the things that I've actually done in my process is that I've actually gone through topics or sentences or words that when I was younger were triggers for me, or were triggering, or were topics that I didn't like or that I didn't want to look at. And like how I cured myself of hypoglycemia when I ate when I had those 3 days where I ate, super high sugar, then medium sugar, then no sugar, and listened to my body and listened to what my mind did when my body was actually triggered. And that's how I discovered my own language for my mind and body connection when I was 19. And you're absolutely right, Poonam. It's just like it takes time to step down from the triggered emotion, but it becomes more and more normal. The more you practice, the better you get at it, the more normal it is, and the faster it happens. And the more you normalize it as a regular practice, like not just meditation, but actually, no, you know what? There's something that bugs you, go into it. I mean, this is what Carl Jung did when he wrote the Red Book, is that he wanted to explore madness. So he locked himself away in his study and let himself go mad and into magical thinking and into blah, blah, blah. And then he would have his wife come in, I think it was, and take notes once a day, where he'd have a period where he'd stop. He'd stop his madness. He was consciously participating and his wife would come in and take notes of his observations during the day. And he did this for months and months and months. And that's where the Red Book comes from, Carl Jung's work in terms of like a descent into madness. And his family waited like years and years and years, and I mean, gosh, about 100 years now before actually releasing it publicly, because they wanted to establish an understanding through some of the Carl Jung foundations out there, some of the psychological associations, this concept of stepping between mental states. And they wanted to have a dialogue about it before they released, because people are just like, oh, this is just the ravings of a madman. But they wanted to establish the history between Carl Jung and his wife and what they did. And then the Red Book came out. And it's one of, it's like I've only read a bit of it. My mom's got a copy of it, but it's really quite amazing. But again, it talks about this exact thing that you mentioned, put up, is the stepping down, where Carl Jung was playing with and experimenting with different altered states by letting his mind wander and going deep into magical thinking and deep into projection and ludicrous hypothesis, just to feel what his mind and body would do. And everybody thought he was insane for doing it, but it's been kind of groundbreaking and has really illustrated a lot of gaps in modern psychiatric treatment as a result. Because if you don't understand how to step down, if you don't understand how to listen and step down and step away from a triggered emotion, you're just going to keep recycling everything.
So the first thing would be to take a breath, right? Once you take a breath, it will take you back. And what would be the second step? Just
Think of something different. Think of something more neutral. Go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
Okay. Doing something different, like completely changing. Like this is what Carl Jung did, is like he would be in these spaces and then he would have tea, he'd have a cigar, and it would reset him to be able to have like this conversation with his wife. And then his wife would take notes of his observations, and then off again he'd go.
I think Tony Robbins, now I remember, that makes sense, because I think he used that in his strategies, because he said you need pattern interruption. That
Yes.
moment, you need to interrupt the pattern. So do something like.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. This is why I tell people, just wiggle your toes. Because it's one of those things where you have to get out of your head and you go, even look down at your toes and wiggle your toes.
Well, and like when we teach in Qigong, like when you do that one breathing where we breathe in through the nose and then like breathing out, like heavily, like expelling it, then you're dissipating like frustration or pent up like agitation. Or what was that other one we did in the workshop where you make fists and then you breathe in and then you go shh and you open your hands and you like release it into the ground.
Yep.
So
Okay,
it's hard to do when you're at work. I mean, unless you don't care that people, whatever. But I do that at home sometimes. I was frustrated yesterday. I don't know why. It was just came up, and then I was making dinner and I just did the and then I was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You're right. Because sometimes I even listen to other people, and there's like the deep sighs, like, oh, what happened, right? You kind of feel that someone else is processing something, and it's almost their body just needs to do that sigh.
Yep.
Yeah, that's from Touching the Toes to Nourish the Golden Elixir, where we hold the dantian and we do this big deep breath in and then a loud exhale. And the so the toning is actually a yang qi, or an agitation dissipating, dispersing method. So yeah, that's a really good one. One of my favorite things is to always do something physical. Like, what I'm doing right now, even though I'm talking, I'm very conscious of the fact that I have those little selenite pieces in my hands, and I'm feeling them in my hands while I'm talking. So there's always something that I'm doing that keeps me connected to my physical body. My
Like
grandpa,
an anchor, right? Anchor to the present. Yeah.
Yeah, my boys go punch the punching bag.
Yep.
Right. I used to, when my kids, when they were all growing up and everybody's got their things and, someone gets frustrated or you're trying to, I would go to my room, close the door and like yell into a pillow.
But
Yeah.
isn't that like creating more, like getting into emotions and actually amplifying it?
When I yell into a pillow?
Right, because that's like almost doing something crazy. Like if I am frustrated, why do I want to yell? Yell, it's making it like me more
Oh
negative.
no, I didn't mean like yell, like as in yell words. It's just like, like just
Yep.
because you're just basically all it does, like when you're making any kind of noise, like you're just the noise, the vibration itself actually helps break up the agitation in your body. And that's all you're doing is you're trying to break up the agitation so that you're not building it up inside so then you don't go yell at someone. So when I use the word yell, I didn't mean I'm yelling words or anything. It's just like,
Yeah,
when
it's not an anger. It's like silent screaming.
silent screaming when you go in the shower. You've ever done that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
What it does is
Same
because
thing.
when you open your mouth that way and you expel, like when you actually yell, you engage the vagus nerve and you reset the vagus nerve. All that fascia at the back of your throat and in your mouth and your tongue resets the vagus nerve.
Yeah. And then I've done that and I've had a cry. You cry in the shower and then you're good. Body's like, all right, we're good now. I haven't had any to do that in a while, but you just reminded me of that. Yeah. That's another thing. Because the water too, right? The water is very cleansing. That's why showers are so good.
Yeah, I shower at least generally twice a day, morning and night, reset my energy field because the droplets when something showers out, yeah,
But
it ionizes. The ionization effect neutralizes your energy field. It cleans your energy field.
And
I
actually,
think
crying is good because it also has hormones in your tears that actually help you relax.
Yes. Yeah, you
oh.
actually release stress
So,
hormones when you cry.
yeah. hmm
And
So,
do you do anything in the shower like with intentional? Because I know that Lakshmi once said something about imagining when the water pours on you that it actually cleanses off the energy to actually visualizing like all of it
Yes.
falling off of you.
Yeah, I do that almost every time I step into the shower because it's so effective because you literally have the physical contact and the physical representation to give you that full body feeling and that visualization becomes a lot easier. And it's one of the things that helped me be able to do it like almost anywhere I am.
Because my experience is it's sometimes tough because when I go in the shower, actually my mind is starting rehearsing everything that happened in a day and like going back to being very busy. And then I'm done with the show. It's like I thought it was supposed to purify me, and I was so busy that I didn't even know when that shower. I'm just done. Like oh,
Okay,
and I
so
was somewhere
here's the
else.
thing. Here's the thing. When you next time you shower, repeat 27 times, I am love.
27
I am
times.
love. 27 times. Count them. I am love. 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 Do it.
Why 27?
3, 6, and 9. 27 is no. Wait,
Three
no.
times
27?
9. 3 times
Sorry,
9.
3 times 9, right?
3 times 9. Yeah, there we go.
plus 7 is mine.
My brain was like, wait a minute, there's math here. Hold on. Hold on. I got it. It's in there.
Wait,
Thanks.
7, 2
Thanks.
plus 7 is 9. Mm-hmm.
I know it's getting late for Patricia. You good, Patricia? And I think we got
I'm going to
whoever.
take a shower now. So I
No,
have
you
my
need to go. You
homework.
need to go to bed. You need to go to bed. It's getting late. Incredibly amazing, Kelly and Kelly. Thank you so much. Eternally grateful for
Everyone.
all the feedback. And I know it's going to be the holidays before we meet. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Everybody enjoy your Christmas with your families and friends. And Patricia, make sure you enjoy your Christmas. And don't make 100 million things, medical medium things. Just make 1 or 2. Okay? Don't
You
spend
guys,
your whole
but
day.
I would like to see everyone's that's watching that show to also join Kelly and Callie in April, this Sunday, because I'm sure you're gonna be touching a little more about that going within, right?
Yep.
On
Yep.
on Sunday, so I hope that everybody signs up because I did. I'll be there.
I did too. Please join the workshop. Kelly already reminded in the beginning of this Facebook Live. So thank you for the reminder, Patricia. I know you love the company. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
you.
And
Oh,
we meet
please
again in
accept
2 weeks.
my gratitude as well. This is Radhika. This is being so helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radhika. Have a good night. Much love. Many
Thank-
blessings.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.